we're obviously going to start off with the most important dude, the strongest of the God Warriors, Siegfried. So, for those of you who recognize the name Siegfried but don't know where it's from, Siegfried is probably the most famous warrior in Norse and Germanic mythology. He is the hero of the Nibelung saga, which is a long and very complicated saga that I don't have time to get into. We would be here all day. But the Saint Seiya Siegfried has a lot of references to the legend besides the name.
Yes, I would
When
also
we
like to
first
point
see
out that he is not a German musician
he is not.
or magician.
So one,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, he's not a German magician. Nope, not this time. So one of the things we see in Saint Seiya is Siegfried's cloth. The God, I can't pronounce this. The Dub Alpha robe, and we notice that it is based on a dragon. Now, this is actually a really, as well as his special attack, the dragon's bravest blizzard. Now, both of these are a reference to Siegfried from the legend, who fought the dragon Fafnir, and by killing the dragon Fafnir, and bathing in his blood, he inherited the dragon's invincibility in every spot except for a tiny spot on his back where a leaf fell. And then he stole the dragon's curse gold, even though the dragon said don't do that. But that's besides the point. So
by any chance,
in
the dragon had two heads.
it's in some versions of the legend, yeah. Which, again, explains the two heads on his cloth. Now, one of the things we see in Saint Seiya is Siegfried's Odin robe is stated to be the strongest Odin robe, which is a reference to the mythical Siegfried's invincibility, after dipping in the dragon blood, of course. Except for one spot, when he does the Dragon Bravest Blizzard, he drops his guard enough to keep his heart unprotected. This is a reference to the legend again, where the leaf that fell on his back was the one area he wasn't invincible in, which is how he got killed.
Oh no, so he got Achilles.
Yeah, he got Achilles. In fact, it's actually kind of ironic that Siegfried's cloth resembles Fafnir, and then in the thing we're not talking about, they actually have Fafnir, and he looks nothing like, and nothing about him resembles Fafnir. Kind of ironic, but that's for another day. But yeah, so after we go to Siegfried, we go to Mime, who is the second of the God Warriors. God damn. Sorry, Mime is named after the dwarf who raised Siegfried in the legend, right? And we actually get another reference to the myth here, because Mime in the anime is a musician who, whereas Mime in the legend was a musician and a what are they called? Well, no. That's Captain Harlock's Mime. We're not talking about her.
All right.
But Mime in the legend was a musician as well as a what is the word? Yeah, no, musician and a blacksmith. That's the other word. We don't get a lot of references to the blacksmithing part, but we do get a lot of references to the musician part, because Mime in the anime plays on the harp. We also get a slight reference to how Mime and Siegfried were adoptive father and adoptive son in the anime, because Mime is considered Siegfried's best friend, which bit of a downgrade, but we're going to count it. Now, Mime's cloth doesn't really have a lot of references, but but there is one reference I'm going to count. if you look at Mime's cloth, his god robe, one of the arms is noticeably bigger and thicker than the other, which in traditionally, when you worked as a blacksmith, your forging arm, the arm you use the hammer with, would eventually be much, much bigger than and have more developed muscles than your holder arm, the arm you use to hold things. So I'm going to count that as a reference. It's subtle, but I'm going to count it. And besides, as we know by now, Kurumada doesn't do anything by mistake.
Well, I think this is
Yeah,
technically not Kurumada here. I believe
that's fair.
I forget his name, but I think mostly known as like the man that created Rope. Yeah, he pretty much.
Oh yeah, that guy, the animator from Toei. Never mind.
Yeah,
Never mind. Toei makes lots of mistakes. I can't give them any leeway. But we'll go on to I think the third of the God Warriors I wanted to talk about. So the third of the God Warriors that I want to talk about is Albrecht, which I'm sure I'm butchering badly. Albrecht, which I'm sure I'm butchering terribly. Like I am positive I just butchered this man's name, and a bunch of our German viewers are going to want to stab me. So Albrecht I actually like because we get a lot of references to the myth here. First off, if you look at his helmet, you see it's a very dark elf bat-like design, which makes sense because Albrecht was a dwarf or a dark elf. The terms were interchangeable in Norse. Dwarves were dark elves and dark elves were dwarves. It was the same thing. Anyway, but yeah.
I noticed that just randomly come across like just little background imagery. There's like an image of a skull and like crystals, anything like that in the middle.
Yeah, that's actually really important because in the myth and play, Albrecht, whose name I am still positive I'm butchering, was he was the king of the dwarves, right? So, and as the king of the dwarves, he was like the greatest forger. He was the guy who did everything. However, in the Rheingold, as he was forcing the other Nibelungs to forge for him, he crafted a ring, which is where we get that skull imagery because the ring has a skull on it. The cursed ring of the Rheingold. That's where we get a lot of that skull imagery from, and a lot of that crystal imagery because the Nibelungs or the Dark Elves or the Dwarves or whatever you want to call them would be deep down in the mines searching for gold and precious jewels. It's a pretty literal metaphor for blood rubies, I guess.
Now,
that's also where we would get the crystal sword from.
Just about to ask that. Where's the sword?
Yeah, so the crystal sword is most likely a literalization of the weapons he used to forge the ring, and his own sword, because his own sword was never given a name, so we don't have to worry about it. But it was stated to be forged of the finest gold and precious metals. So it would be really easy to transfer precious metals into crystals, and then boom, there we have the sword. One of the other things we notice about Albrecht is, besides the sword of fire, and of course, it actually makes sense that he uses a lot of nature and fire, because Albrecht in the myth was a he was, as I keep saying, he was a magic user. He used a lot of magic in his fights. It's always the villains have all the magic in the universe, and the hero just has a really good steel sword. And then goes shanky. But so again, we get a lot of references to Das Nibelung with him, And finally, we get to Zeth